a thorny subject for the arts industry, and last week we touched on it when we were doing an interview on the National Arts Festival, still awaiting a sponsorship response from the lottery. Now today we are looking at the issue in depth and from different points of views by having the National Lottery Board, Business and Arts South Africa and a reputable artist to offer their expert opinions on this issue. Now let's go to, very quickly, let me introduce them. We're in Pretoria, Professor Alfred Nevhutanda, and that's in our Pretoria studio, Michelle Constant from BASA, and Dr. Wally Serote, who is here on this matter. Let's maybe start with our guest in Pretoria, and Professor, let's talk about the delay. What causes the delay in response to some of the art organizations in relation to funding?
Thank you very much, and good morning to the viewers out there, and the lottery players all over the country. I must indicate that it depends on, if you say there is much delay, sometimes applicants submit their applications very late on the last day. And you remember when we issue out adverts, we indicate that it will be on the first come, first serve basis. So therefore, I do agree that there could be some delays here and there. But as from 2011, we pledged before the public that we will make sure that applications will, if they come on time, they will stay with us for only 90 days. In other words, 90 days that includes processing and even adjudication. But sometimes you must also understand that those who adjudicate are not full-time. They only come as and when they are free to come and adjudicate applications. But thank God, the Minister of Trade and Industry, together with his department, they have already placed on board the amendment of the legislation, which it seeks to say only people who full-time will be allowed to come and adjudicate. So yes, the system is improving drastically.
Professor, let me bring in Dr. Wally Serote here very quickly before I go to Michelle Constant from BASA. I mean, Doctor, you've heard what the professor is saying in terms of 90 days, part-time. There's a couple of excuses there in his response. But maybe let me throw the question at the artists and the organizations that apply for funding too. We've heard from the National Lottery in terms of their response. Do you agree, and do you think that artist organizations don't know enough about funding in the first place to get it right?
No, I do think that the National Lottery Board has immense challenge in their hands, especially because this has become very popular among artists. Artists are applying for funds from all over the country, you know. But I've always wondered why they can't act like a bank, you know, allow for all people to submit their profiles and allow for some kind of access to understand how the process works. I mean, you receive a batch of documents and most times you have to research what is it that is needed to fill in the forms. It becomes very cumbersome. So it's cumbersome for them. I understand that. I mean, they are inundated with applications. On the other hand, the artists themselves have not been schooled on how to approach the process so that they do it well. So I've been thinking about it and wondering, why is it that it's not done so that long before you apply for money, the board already has all kinds of information about people who are possibly going to who are going to apply for the funds. But of course, I'm talking also from a position of ignorance, you know. No, for sure.
Let's maybe bring in Michelle Constant there, because there is this chasm between the funding process, how artists fund, and as Dr. Wally is already saying, maybe we need to shift to a bank mentality here.
I'm not sure. I couldn't really answer the question around a bank mentality, but I think what Dr. Serote says, which is absolutely true, is the challenge that happens with regards to having to fill in the papers, having to make the application. I mean, that is extremely challenging, and it needs to be simplified on a variety of levels. I think that there needs to be greater conversation between, for example, lotteries, the National Arts Council, possibly BASA, although BASA works in a slightly different environment, but where everybody fills in the same kinds of applications, because it's an onerous task for any artist to have to do, and it's extremely difficult. And it's something that we need to engage with to improve the process.
Professor, what we're going to do is we've split this interview in two parts. We've run out of time on the first segment, but when we come back, and I want you just to wrap your head around this, let's talk about that process and making sure that we streamline the entire funding process and application for funding. So that's where we'll pick it up when we start this interview again. For now, we're going to go to an ad break. Of course, my guest is Professor Alfred Nevhutanda, who is from the National Lotteries Board. We've got Dr. Wally Serote here, an esteemed artist and a writer, and of course we're joined by Buses, Business and Art South Africa's Michelle Constant, and we'll continue this discussion in a couple of minutes.